Mr. Chairman, this is Teresa. Staff is ready when you are.
All right, thank you, Teresa. We will call to order the Town of Hilton Head Island Design Review Board meeting for Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. Teresa, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we are.
Thank you very much. Would you please call roll?
Certainly. Ms. Lippert?
Oh, I think.
Oh, we can hear you, Ms. Lippert.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Foss?
Here.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Ms. Remke?
Here.
Mr. Molesky?
Here.
Mr. Karstens? Oh, Mr. Karstens, you're muted. Try again for me.
Teresa.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure between my phone or the computer whether the mute was going to be through which. So I am here.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And Mr. Gentleman?
I am also here.
Thank you.
All right, agenda, approval of agenda. Does staff have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir. There is a change to the agenda. T. Dalton Clothing, which is DRB 000452-2020, has withdrawn. They did not have their ARB approval.
All right, thank you, Chris. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
A motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Lippert. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second from Ms. Foss. Board members, if you have any changes to the agenda, state them when called by Teresa. Otherwise, please vote yes or no to approve the agenda. Teresa, will you please call roll?
Ms. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Foss?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Remke? Ms. Remke, I see you're muted on your end. Ms. Remke, could you unmute yourself?
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Karstens?
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman?
Yes. All right. Amended agenda has been approved. We'll move on to approval of meeting minutes from the meeting of October 13th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting from October 13th, 2020?
I'll make the motion to approve the meeting of October 13th, 2020.
We have a motion from Ms. Rimke. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Second from Ms. Foss. Again, if you have any comments or changes, please state them when you are called. Otherwise, please vote yes or no. Ms. Teresa?
Ms. Lippert?
Yes.
Ms. Foss?
Yes.
Mr. McAllister?
Yes.
Ms. Remke?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Karstens?
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman?
Yes. And next we move on to citizen comments. Teresa?
Mr. Chairman, public comments concerning agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the town's open town hall portal. There were no public comments submitted through the portal on this agenda. Citizens were also provided the option to sign up to give public comment during the meeting by phone. There were no requests for public comment by phone.
All right. thank you. There's no unfinished business per the agenda, so we will move on to new business. The alteration edition, 18 Lighthouse Lane, DRB 001948-2020. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How is my volume, Mr. Chairman?
Sounds good to me.
Great. The applicant is requesting approval of the proposed replacement of the asphalt shingles of the pitched roof portion, which is Unit 101 of 18 Lighthouse Lane, with a medium bronze shingle roof. Staff recommends approval. You see in front of you an aerial of the area. The building in question is circled in red, and the unit is off to the left of that light building. We'll look at that a little closer. Again, this is the building in relationship to the harbor. It's just a zoomed in section, and you can see the section that is a pitched roof. The balance of the building has a mansard roof, and we'll see that in a minute. Again, another picture of the building with the section in the black square is the roof that's going to be replaced, but this is viewed from the harbor. Just another view. That is the Unit 101, which again is the pitched roof section. It's the only section that has an asphalt shingle roof. See the roof here. And you can see that adjacent mansard roof. I would call it a mansard roof. I'll defer to the architects on the board. And that concludes staff's presentation. Again, staff is recommending approval.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Is the applicant present? If you are, please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Greg Wynn, GW Services. We're the property manager. Yeah, hi. We're
Thank you.
yeah, I'm Greg, GW Services. We manage Caravel Court, and we've got a 2-unit townhouses to the side of the high rise, and it kind of just sits. Chris kind of showed you the location. It sits in between. We need to re-roof them, and we thought we would upgrade it to the standard the metal roof, which is becoming more prevalent in Harbor Town in general, just to create a more up-to-date look. It should blend in well with the high-rise color already. So that's, I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Quick question for you. Is the mansard that Chris pointed out, is that also the medium bronze?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm sure someone was going to ask you that. All right. Please sit tight, and if anyone has any questions for you, they will ask you as we go through the roll. So let's see. Let's start with Mr. McAllister.
Yeah, I think it looks fine. Medium bronze, I think will blend in nicely. No comment.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, David. Mr. Karstens?
No additional comments.
Thank you, Judd. Ms. Lippert?
Looks good to me.
Thank you, Annette. Mr. Molesky?
Yes, would you be painting the fascia to also match the roof, or is that going to remain the existing body color?
Greg, you can go ahead and answer if you know the answer.
now the plan is because the fascia the fascia that's on those townhouses now is the same trim that's used throughout even on the high rise. So there's, can you hear me?
Yes.
But the fascia, there's no immediate plans to paint it because the fascia matches the trim on the high rise and the townhouses. So it's what's being used as the trim throughout the property.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Molesky. You still
No, that's fine. Then I'm assuming that you put a new drip edge on there, and the drip edge will probably also be that same bronze color.
Yes, sir. The new boots and the drip edge will all be the bronze.
Okay. Thank you. Looks good.
Thanks, John. Ms. Remke.
I think it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And Ms. Foss.
I'm easy on this one. It looks good.
Thank you, Kathy. Me too. I believe this one's a slam dunk. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I
Mr.
will
McAllister?
move to approve 18 Lighthouse Lane, DRB 001948-2020, approval as submitted.
Thank you, David. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Molesky. I think he got that one in under the wire. We have a motion for approval as submitted from Mr. McAllister and a second from Mr. Molesky. Again, if you have any further comments as your name is called, please state them. Otherwise, please vote yes or no. Ms. Teresa?
Miss Lippert,
Yes.
Miss Foss,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Remke,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman.
Yes, so passes as submitted unanimously. Thank you, Greg. You may log off at your convenience.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You're welcome. You too. Thanks. All right, next on the agenda is Shelter Cove railings replacement, DRB 001966-2020. Chris, over to you.
May I just interrupt briefly? I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody else is having this, but as far as the screens, they almost always have the incorrect label of who is who on the screens, at least what I'm seeing.
Oh, yeah.
Like Ms. Rem is David right now. David is Judd. I don't know if it matters, just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, and it reads differently on mine. Kathy is David McAllister on mine, so.
I never get my name on there. I don't know what's wrong.
Well,
Mine looks right.
yours
Yeah,
is straight on
mine's
mine, Debbie.
correct.
I think it might be a screen thing.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I hadn't noticed, but that's good to know. I don't know if we need to note that or anything. We identify ourselves before we speak, so it's on record correctly. So. Go ahead,
Mr.
Chris.
Chairman, this is Chris.
Yes, sir.
This is Chris Darnell. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty moving the slide, so I'm sorry for the dead airspace, but you're going to have to bear with me for a minute.
Okay.
Teresa, am I sharing a screen?
Yes, Chris, you are.
So you can see Shelter Cove?
Yes.
Great. And it's still not moving.
Chris, would you like me to try on my end?
No, we'll do it. We'll do it this way. I think I got it. I mean, it's not perfect, but apologies, Mr. Chairman. The applicant, Shelter Cove railing replacement. The applicant is requesting changing all railing located at Shelter Cove Harbor Marina. The rail provides safety between common walkway around the marina owned by Shelter Cove Company and the water's edge. The existing rail is 30 plus years old and has been maintained to standard, but needs to be replaced to code. The original plan was to replace as designed, but with new code and design rail, it is inadequate, and matching existing is cost prohibitive. At this time, the applicant is requesting the rail design to be changed to an all Ipe wood with a cable rail per the drawings that we'll see in a minute. This does not include, staff would like to note that this does not include the bridge between Shelter Cove and the Disney development. At this time, staff is recommending approval as submitted. So you'll see the larger slide is an aerial of Shelter Cove. And essentially, with the exception of the bridge and the outlet to the marina, the red indicates where the railing will be going. We've included a couple of pictures of Shelter Cove Park, Community Park, because if you can look in the background there, it's a very similar rail to what is being proposed. Well, hold on. Again, just some Shelter Cove Community Park rails. That's a gate at the marina. This existing gate does not match what's there and would not be replaced. It would be maintained. The existing streetscape around the park, around the marina. Some detail. More detail of the existing rail. This is the rail where that the wood meets the sidewalk there. Just another detail. So you can see how they're proposing this phasing, 2 phases. Phase 1 is the green on the lower part of on the slide, and pink would be on the Disney development side. A detail of the proposed rail with dimensions. Now, again, just note this is an all e-pay system. There will not be any aluminum. The aluminum will be replaced by e-pay. So that concludes staff's presentation. Again, staff is recommending approval as submitted.
Thanks, Chris. Could you clarify it just, I think it's clear, but when you say it's all e-pay, you mean the whole thing is e-pay? Post
Yes,
too?
sir. The whole thing thing is e-pay. The columns, there is no metal other than the wire.
Okay. And all right. And any other questions we can ask Dan when he comes on. All right. Thank you, Chris. Were you finished?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Dan, I thought I saw you pop up. Would you identify yourself, please, for the record? Dan Anderson, you out there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
Dan Anderson with Barrier Island Marine Contractors.
Welcome again, Dan. Would you
Thank
like
you
to
for having us.
would you like to add anything to Chris's narrative?
No, except thank you all for having us again. Appreciate it. Everything's going to be all e-pay, 4x4 post and the cap. No aluminum. That's been taken off the drawing board. All stainless steel cable. Very similar to the Shelter Cove, except they're using 3x8s as their stanchions. We're using 4x4s, which is very similar to what's existing now. I think he told you it's going to be in 2 phases. They'd like to do it all at one time, but time constraints and budget's not allowable. So once we do phase 1, we're going to continue next year with phase 2 and wrap it all up with all new railing, the whole entire marina.
Great. That'll look great. What's the finish on it, Dan, on the e-pay?
What's the finish? It's just going to be, they're going to leave it natural, just like Shelter Cove.
Okay. Thank you.
They might every couple of years put a conditioner on the cap because it is e-pay and it will dry up after a couple of years, but they might do that maintenance wise once in a couple of years. That's about it.
All right. Thank you very much. Hang tight in case anyone has any questions for you. We'll start with Mr. McAllister.
All right. In your previous submittal, I was on board with the aluminum post, but I really like the e-pay better. I think it's going to really make this marina look great. So I'm on board. No comment.
All right. Thank you, David. Mr. Karstens?
I think it looks great. What was the frequency of the cable mount? Like how long of a run will the cables be? Dan?
Sorry, I got muted. We're trying not to go more than 50 foot due to the stretching and stuff is what we're trying to keep it. 40 to 50 foot is where we're going to max it out at.
Okay. I know, just knowing that it's going to get a lot of it's going to get a lot of touches. So, and then
yes,
with the detail of it, obviously the rail is going to be continuous. Is there any thought to having that 3x4 basically just bracketed between the posts so the posts come all the way up to the railing? I know that's the detail over on the mall side. I didn't know if the thought, in the previous detail, obviously that was going to be tube aluminum, but maybe
right.
if the post goes all the way up to the rail and then you just have that 3x4 between the posts, is that a consideration?
I think I have the drawing of the other one, but you're saying when the 4x4 posts come up to the cap itself? Maybe I lost
Yeah,
you.
bring the four. Yeah, no, bring the 4x4s all the way up to that top railing, and then if Chris could bring up, either number 27 there. It's obviously going to be a mass when it comes to that top rail.
Correct.
I just wasn't sure if you look at the Shelter Cove, the mall side, pretty much what it is the post comes all the way up to the bottom of the railing or the top rail, and that there's pretty much just a secondary kind of piece that's between the posts. It's not a continuous piece.
Yeah, actually, yes, that's what we're going to do. Actually, it's I don't know where the other drawing, but correct. It's very similar to that. It'll look just like it with the 3x on top. It'll be a 2x4 underneath it. It just won't have as much stainless hardware as the Shelter Cove rail has. In the Shelter Cove rail upright with 3x, we're doing 4x4s. So very similar, almost identical.
Okay.
In about way.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if bringing that post all the way up to the bottom edge of that 3x6 might help bring down the mass of that upper portion of those two 3x stack.
It's just one 3x. I apologize. That piece up top, it looks the heavy piece. That was from the aluminum drawing, and it was not deleted.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, the 4x4 posts do go all the way up to the bottom of the cap itself.
Okay.
So this is Chris Darnell with the town. So just to clarify, that 3x4 under the 3x6 is not there.
Correct. It's just a 2x4, very similar to the Shelter Cove Park drawings, almost identical. If you can pull
there's still a wood member that's between the posts.
Right. But the post goes all the way up to the cap. See how you've got a 2x4? You see how you have a 2x4, whatever that is, in between the post?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they do that is to keep that cap straight. If you don't have anything underneath it to bolt to, or our particular instances, it's grooved where the 2x4, the cap sits on top of the 2x4, so it doesn't start to move and sway. And it's something to attach it to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jed. Ms. Lippert.
So I have to admit I'm struggling to follow what is actually proposed because it seems that none of the drawings or images actually are representing what is actually being proposed. So as best as I understand, and please correct me afterwards, and then I will have a number of follow-up questions, it's a 4x4 post that butts up directly to the underside of a 3x6, and in between each 4x4 is a 2x4. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how are those actually getting connected? Where are we going to see bolts? Because you mentioned it's going to be fewer bolts than what we're seeing on the screen right now.
The top cap gets screwed through to the 2x, and then the 2x gets screwed in also with recessed stainless steel screws.
So is the handrail getting screwed in from underneath?
No, it's coming from the top.
Okay, so the top of the handrail will have exposed countersunk stainless steel screws?
That is correct.
And where else am I going to see? Let me see. So then you're just butt jointing the 3x6 as one piece comes to the other?
Correct.
Are there going to be any splicing plates?
No, it'll be butt jointed.
Okay. And then, because the other aspect that I guess I'm not really clear on is how it really connects to the various conditions of the rim board of the sidewalk, and if and what of that rim board are you proposing to keep or replace. And Chris, if you could maybe go to slide either 24 or 25. Yeah, 24. Maybe just start with that rim board. Is anything being proposed to be done to that?
Yeah, that has to be replaced as is with a 6x12.
And is it being replaced with an epay or with a pressure treated or with what?
It's pressure treated. Half of it's already existing, half of it is not existing on the marina.
So, because then let's say if we look at slide 23, I think there's yet a different base condition.
Yeah, that's the 6x12.
Okay, so the rim board gets replaced everywhere with a 6x12.
No, that's a 3x with what you're seeing in the picture now on 24. It has to go to a 6x. If you go to slide number 23, if it's possible, Chris. Yeah, see the bottom. Yeah, you can compare the two. Some of this is existing. Go to the other picture. My apology. You can see the difference in the two. And the reason the 6x12 has to be replaced is, per the engineer, there's nothing to bolt to. If you look at this existing picture here, you've got some pieces that stick out that are 3x's that are through bolted to hold the railing in place. There is no way to replace that. It's a lot more detailed in the engineering side of this than what we're looking at, but the carriage bolts are underneath that concrete, and well, you can't get to the carriage bolts now. So the engineers came up with the design of putting the 6x12 in there, bolted to, you see your big timber pieces that stick out that look kind of decorative. Those are all bolted together for the railing.
So what happens to the joists that are currently with a through bolt connection?
They're all getting taken out and replaced with a 6x12.
I see. Okay, so all those short pieces in between the big
Yes.
shapes,
Yes.
those are all getting removed.
Every one of them has to be cut out. And the only way to cut them is you have to go up underneath the dock to cut them off. When they initially designed it, they put a carriage bolt through it, and the head is underneath the concrete, and there's no way to get to it without tearing up all the concrete.
They're getting cut off flush with the new 6x12?
Yes, they're getting cut off flush at the bottom. All that disappears right there, you see.
So the 12 inches will, I guess, from the sidewalk, based on the previous image, it's going to project up off the sidewalk, and then the 11 1/4 will cover the cutoff joist?
Yeah, those cut off pieces actually get removed completely. The ones y'all can't see me, right? No.
Okay. But the new rim joist will project up from the sidewalk?
Yes, correct. If you go back to picture number 23 again. There you go.
And so that will project how much?
It projects up, I think, 3 inches.
That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette. Mr. Molesky.
All right, so just to reiterate things here, 4x4 post, and then you're going to have a 2x4 that's going to be laying flat that will be on top of the post, or excuse me, 2x4, and then a 3x6 is the rail.
Correct.
and I'm sure there's 100 ways to skin a cat, but as a suggestion, you got your 4x4 post there vertically. The 2x4 could just be screwed down directly on top of those posts. And then when you put the 3x6 railing, maybe have the screws come up through the 2x4 into the 3x6. Then this way along the top, there wouldn't be any stainless steel screw heads there to potentially allow, I know Ipe is really dense and all that kind of good stuff, but it'll keep people from leaning on the rail and maybe burning themselves on a screw head or something like that. But other than that, that's my only 2 cents. Everything I think is going to look nice and clean there. I like the idea of switching over to the Ipe and getting away from all the heavier feeling aluminum as before. And other than that, and maybe there are some details there we just didn't see, but I just know in the past, being on the board, that typically, the architect is providing a detail to address a lot of the questions that Ms. Lippert, I guess, was throwing out there, and perhaps this sketch comes close to doing that. But that's...
Yeah, my apology, but it was the last minute. We were going from the aluminum to Ipe, and as you can imagine, there's a board at Shelter Cove Company that we had to do some hurdles, and it was last minute. But ever since then, we've even have more updated drawings, and you just, just didn't make it in time. But the same thing with the brackets. There's exterior stainless steel brackets. We're trying to get the engineer to design it to remove those and have recessed bolted all the way through, so you don't see any of that either. So there is one or two little small moving parts still with this have not been finalized, but overall basis of it is what you see.
Okay, and other than that, Mr. Gittiman brought up a good point how it's going to be finished. For those who aren't familiar with Ipe, obviously, if you let it weather naturally, it kind of takes on a nice, silverish gray, tone to it. And then obviously, if you apply the Ipe oil, then it takes on a very different look. And perhaps as a design review board, maybe the coloring there, I don't know how partial will be to one or another. It sounds like you were indicating that they're going to allow perhaps the post to weather naturally and perhaps apply the Ipe oil to the top rail, but I don't know how much we're able to necessarily police that moving forward.
Well, you kind of have to do it for natural. Ipe has a natural oil to it, so as you can imagine, it's getting beat up by the sun all day long. So you just do it every year or so to get a little bit of that oil in there. It doesn't stay. It only lasts for a couple of months and it's gone. But once it gets into the wood, it kind of helps preserve that cap for longevity.
All right, I think it'll look really, really rich. So, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ms. Remke.
There we go. I think this is a nice new look there. I don't have any questions. I think everything's been covered fairly well, so I'm in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Ms. Foss?
Thank you, Mr. Carsons, for bringing up how the drawing shows the 4x4s don't go all the way up to the top railing. They stop, so that was a good catch. And Ms. Lippert, you brought up some really great points about all of your points. You might want to be the one who makes a motion. I'm like disappointed that the gates down to the ramps for each of the individual gates aren't going to match this railing, and I'd like you to address that if you might, Mr. Anderson.
The gates are actually owned by Shelter Cove Harbor Company, which is a Greenwood development company. Shelter Cove Company only owns the walkway. It's a very odd situation. They are responsible for the walkway and the railing around the marina, but the gates are responsible of Shelter Cove Company. Shelter Cove Marina themselves.
So as you understand it, they're going to stay as is.
That's my understanding, correct.
All right. At our last meeting, I was very happy with the color of the railing as it is because it was gray and it kind of just smoothed in with everything. I think it was a wise choice to switch to Ipe wood that will naturally go to gray. I would really be disappointed if you had to put conditioners on. I would like to see it just go natural if that's possible. And let's see. I think you've got a lot of detail drawings to do to fix up the drawings, to show your attachment, the railing underneath, whether or not you're going to condition the IP wood. I think you're going to need to clean that up, but I would very much trust staff to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, I think the EPay, that's a wonderful change. That made my day. I didn't see that note at first, and then it's going to look so much better. And I don't think they're going to want to condition it because they will eventually spend more money conditioning it than it's going to cost to put the rail up. Because if you keep it conditioned, you got to do it twice a year, at least. And you're going to have somebody out there constantly, conditioning that around all those stainless steel wires and stuff. So, natural is the way to go on this. And if they did the top cap, they condition the top cap, that'd be fine, I guess. I don't really care either way. Everybody had a lot of good points. I just want to make sure that we're clear on all of them. I want to hit on Mr. Molesky's way to construct this, and I think he's right. This would be a sturdier, well, obviously the brackets are going to take most of the weight, but it would still be a sturdier construction if you put the 2x4 on top of the 4x4 and ran a big long timber lock screw down into there from the top. Then you put the cap on it and you hide that screw. You don't even know that screw's there. And then you come from underneath with some shorter timber lock screws and catch the cap into the 2x4. That way you don't see any screws whatsoever. Bringing that 4x4 all the way up to the cap really makes that 2x4, I'm not going to say useless, but you'd have to come in at an angle with a screw, or you'd have to come on the top rail with a screw, and then you see the screw, unless you're going to plug them, which I don't think you're going to plug them all. So I think what's in the hand-drawn is the way to build it. Now, keep in mind the 4x4 and the 2x4 are the same width. So I don't think it should matter, or I don't think it should matter. I don't think it matters really if the 4x4 visually, if the 4x4 or 2x4 is sitting on top, or it's sitting in between, because they're all in the same plane, and you're not really going to read that joint. So I think the way you drew it is the way to build it. My dog's getting ready to bark. There's a fire engine coming down the street. Dan, would you address that?
Be honest with you, it's easier for us to put the 2x on top as you're described than the other way. We were trying to match Shelter Cove, and if anybody spent time looking at the Shelter Cove, I mean, there's a lot of work into that railing. Pretty amazing,
Yeah,
but
I
a
mean,
lot of
I
wasted
prefer
money
to
also.
see no fasteners.
Yeah, I agree. So
So
yes,
I'm
we
gonna,
can turn that to the 2x4 flat on top, screw it to the 4x4s, and then we can come from underneath and recess screws into the cap to hold the cap in place.
well, now were you proposing to turn that 2x4 height-wise?
Yeah, that's kind of
Like,
the way it was. Kind of
oh,
long.
okay. All right. I keep reading it as being flat.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell.
Because there's so many different drawings, is
Yeah, I
part
know.
of the problem. I think ultimately we're probably going to end up with a approval with conditions, and then probably want to see the final drawing, maybe myself and Miss Lippert or somebody, just so we have a final drawing with the bracket kind of being in question and things like that. All right. Well, since you were turning the 2x4 long ways, that kind of changes things.
Yeah, like I said, I apologize, but we do have other drawings, but we're on a time constraint here where Shelter Cove, if it didn't make this, then we've got a bigger issue of completing this project before the summer. And as you can imagine, the railing is in bad condition, then they'd have to shut the whole entire marina down. That's not doable at this time, I don't think. I guess they could if they wanted. It'd be a mess.
Okay. All right. I have a couple other comments. Placing a rim board only pay for it. Okay, so the rim joist projects up 3 or 4 inches, and it's a curb. So now that curb is your effective height, meaning from the top of the curb to the rail now has to be 42 inches, and that appears to be taken care of in this drawing. Are the brackets are at the top of the 6x12, which is the top of the curb. Okay, can we go to, Chris, a section, either the rail that's there or what's proposed? It's just something where we can see a section of it. Any drawing? Yeah, that one right there, 24. 24, yeah. Okay. Here's my personal problem with these kind of rails. When you go outboard with your stanchions, you leave a big hole between that last cable at the bottom and the edge of the 6x12 where a little kid's foot can go through that with absolutely no problem. If you go to the Shelter Cove one, Chris, can you go to the Shelter Cove?
Can you see this, Michael?
Yeah. Hold it up a little higher.
Yeah, we've addressed that to add the cable right on top of the 6x.
Okay. All right. So there's no hole now at your feet.
Yeah, I know this is not the proper way to do this, like I said, but as you can see.
Okay. All right. As long as that's protected, when it was metal and I was thinking you just add a 2x2 tube down there or something. But as long as it meets code and as long as that gets addressed, then I'm okay. But that bottom gap on an outboard stanchion is quite dangerous. So as long as that's picked up, I'm fine with that, and it meets code. So
there is no railing now at all. So
yeah, well now, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll look at that one. See how that bottom, even if that was 4 inches, a foot can go through that very easily, and you just slip on the other side. So as long as that's fixed, I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so I think everybody generally likes it. Let's do one more quick pass through now that everybody has a good idea on what it is. I'd like to get them some sort of approval where they could at least keep moving forward, because I don't think anybody's against this. But maybe, Chris, does this has to get permitted, correct?
Yes, correct.
So there is some form of working drawing for the permit.
Correct.
You're not going to give them what we're looking at for the permit, correct, Dan?
No, the engineers actually finalize once they do their calculations and all that fun stuff.
Okay, so I would like at least our end of our motion to be approval with conditions, and one of the conditions is we get to see the final engineer drawing, and assuming it's going to look fine like you described. But going through the second round, I'd like to know everyone's input on the 2x4. Is it turned? Is it flat? Is it, and any other comments you might have. So let's run through one more time. Mr. McAllister, you got any follow-up on this?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like I was the only person who was fine with what I was looking at initially, but that was with the understanding that, in my mind, the 2x4 was on top of the 4x4 post, and it was flat on the 4x4. not rotated. I guess I don't, like to see the final drawing. I think that's been iterated enough, but in my mind, flat with a 2x4 would be better, but I'm not going to be against, if they want to rotate it. I'm just not sure how that works, but that's my 2 cents. And as far as was it the 6x12, Ms. Lippert brought up, I understand that's going to be pressure treated. Is that going to be unfinished or is it going to be painted, stained? That was the only question that came up during that conversation for me. And, I think that could be something that could be approved by staff or, a couple board members. But that's my only additional comments.
Dan, is the 6x12 painted, untreated, or unpainted?
They would prefer untreated
Okay. All right.
for
Thank you.
maintenance.
All right. And that would probably be the closest look to a weathered Ipe, because if you paint it, it's going to end up looking really different.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Karstens, second round.
Yeah, I can be amenable to the continuous 2x4 that's flat underneath the railing, the 3x6 railing, just for the sake of hiding the hardware, as Chairman Gentleman indicated. And then I'd feign on the side of making the frequency of the cable stays being as close as cost efficient. Considering that there's going to be a lot of strain on these cables for the most part, even with 4-foot spacings, I'd feign on the closer spacing. So if it's got to be 40 feet, then I'd say top out at 40 feet. But obviously, I know with the way it turns and some of the corners that spacing is going to change. But otherwise, I'm on board with the indications, and I'm going to let Ms. Lippert talk to as far as the lower mountings there.
All right. Thanks, Judd. Ms. Lippert, second round.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think we do have to note that nothing in the submission is actually what's being proposed, and I really do struggle with that. I've continued to expand on the list of conditions, and I will be happy to be the one to make the motion, but I do think we really do need to note that, because the submittal does need to represent what's actually being proposed. So I am struggling with that. And I mean, it will definitely have to be approval with conditions with staff review and a board member, because we're all kind of piecing it together and hoping we got the right understanding. But yeah, I have my list of like 10 conditions that I'm hearing from the board once we've gone through one more time. I'm not loving the untreated 6x12 rim board, but because initially, are you saying untreated or pressure treated?
Was
Just
pressure
not
treated,
painted.
not painted.
Yep.
So it's a pressure treated. So it's going to be on the yellowish greenish side, and then we put a reddish Ipe next to that, and the existing has a grayish weathered. So I just think that rim board is going to really stick out, and I think it should be painted gray or stained gray. I'm open to a stained gray, but I have an issue with the untreated. That's all I have in the second round.
Okay, good. Great comments. Mr. Molesky?
Yeah, I guess I'll stick with my suggestion of the vertical 4x4 post, 2x4 on the flat, screwed directly into the post, and then put the 3x6 rail on top of it with the screws coming up through the 2x4s to conceal all the screw heads. I guess those are my.
Okay. Painted or unpainted rim board, John?
I think it definitely would look better if it were painted. I mean, and again, whether it's painted or a solid stain or whatever the case may be, just to make it disappear.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Yes, I'm finished. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Remke?
There we go. I agree with Mr. Molesky on his discussion on the detail. I think the 2x4 flat is going to make a much better detail where it comes across the 4x4 than if it were on edge. And I also like the idea of screwing the top rail from underneath. I think that makes a much cleaner issue, and somebody talked about maybe being burned by the screw heads, but also there's a slight possibility somebody could run their hand over there and get it cut on the screw heads also. So I think that's a very good suggestion. And I think staff can finalize this with some member of the board so they don't have to come back again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What's your opinion on the rim board? Unpainted or painted?
Well, if it's stained, we need
Or
to
stained.
stain it something as close as the iPay will be when it weathers.
Okay,
And I
so
guess we can probably pick a color that will generate that color.
okay, so a gray stain like Ms. Slipper
Yeah.
had suggested. Okay, thank you. And Ms. Foss?
I don't even understand why a 2x4 or 3x4 underneath the top 3x6 railing would ever work, because it's going to be narrower than the 4x4. I think that was a mistake. And you probably didn't mean to say that. So I think the 2x4 needs to be flat. I guess that running it all the way horizontal along the top cap makes sense cost-wise and functionally wise. I would like to see the 4x4s go all the way to the top cap, but I get the idea that it needs to stop, so I'm okay with that. The rim board definitely needs to be stained or painted. It's just going to look raw and not go with anything, and be a misjudgment if it was left untreated or unstained. And definitely there needs to be a resubmission with all of these notes and all of these details resubmitted, so that we can, or somebody can approve them and not have to worry about some mistake being made. And thank you.
Are you suggesting a resubmission as it comes back before the whole board, or can we assign, say, Annette and one other person plus staff?
I think
Okay.
definitely Annette and you, it could be submitted in front of you too, and staff, and it would be okay with me.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think everybody's covered all the good points here. So, Chris, do you have, sorry, Chris, I tend to cut you off at the end. Do you have anything to add to the conversation?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Staff is good.
All right. What I think we can accomplish here is Ms. Lippert, who I know has taken wonderful notes through all this, put out a motion, and I think Annette should definitely be part of the review with staff, and I would volunteer to be a second set of eyes on that. So, so if there's no other discussion, any last minute items? Anyone? All right, Annette, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, for DRB submittal 001-966-2020, I would like to make a motion for approval with the following conditions. And I'm going to say, forgive me that these are going to not be in logical order. However, construction to be a 4x4 post with a flat 2x4 on top to be screwed down into the post, on top of which will be a 3x6, which will get screwed in from underneath. Then, let me go. There will be a 6x12 rim board that will project up 3 inches from the sidewalk. Said rim board should be stained or painted a version of gray to which the epay will weather. And just a double checking of the height, as we presume it has to be measured as of that 3-inch curb. All existing intermediate joists will be fully, with through-bolt connections, will be fully removed. The recommendation is that the epay not be conditioned and be allowed to weather to gray. The understanding is that the gate to the docks will remain as is. The number of wires and location of cables is to be clarified. A final engineered drawing is to be submitted. The cable stays should be kept as close as possible to be cost efficient, but a maximum of 40 feet. The detail shall be provided about the recessed plate connection to the rim board that was mentioned. And it shall be resubmitted to staff and 2 board members for approval. That concludes my motion.
That sounded pretty thorough. Are there any suggested amendments to the motion before we vote? All right, would someone like to second that motion?
Motion.
We have a motion from Ms. Lippert and a second from Ms. Foss. And Ms. Teresa, would you please call roll?
Miss Lippert,
Yes.
Miss Foss,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Miss Remke,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman.
Yes. Approval with conditions passes unanimously. Thanks, Dan. Good luck. We're looking forward to seeing the final drawing.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, board members and staff also. Thank you
All right,
for working with us.
Thanks.
Appreciate
You
it.
may log off at your convenience. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Next we have, I lost my place. There we go. 28 Shelter Cove Lane, DRB 002098-2020. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Teresa, is my screen being shared?
Not yet, Chris? Chris, do you want to try that again?
I'm trying. I am. Yes, I do.
Okay, Chris, we're getting a screen share right now.
Okay, I'm getting there. How's that?
Great.
Apologies for the technical issues. The applicant is working to turn New York City Pizza at Shelter Cove into an upscale steakhouse and would like to change the color of the exterior building and awnings. There will be no change up to the roof. The colors proposed are universal khaki, which is Sherwin-Williams 6150 for the exterior of the building, and black for the awnings canvas. All of the colors proposed are from the Shelter Cove Town Center Color Board. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the plants in the planter are not artificial. The site or the building is circled in red in front of you. The marshes of Broad Creek and Shelter Cove Community Park are to the top of the screen, and you can see the parking lot, and beyond that would be 278 on the bottom right of your screen. These are pictures of, well, again, you can see in the upper left where New York City Pizza is and the environs, and then you can see some pictures around of the existing buildings around New York City Pizza.
Hey, Chris, this is Teresa.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your photos, your presentation's not coming through clearly, and I just wanted to check and see how the board members were seeing things.
It's splotchy. I can see it now, but it took a little while to fill in.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing, little black squares or checkerboards.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, it seems to be okay right now.
So maybe just move slower.
Yes.
Okay. This slide shows the siding of the building of New York City Pizza that will be painted, and the awnings that will be changed to a black awning. It's important to note that there is a black awning immediately adjacent to this building. This slide is the slide of the proposed planter. They will be in black.
And okay, here it comes. All right, there it is.
This is a slide of the entrance to New York City Pizza, one of the elevations. Another elevation. I think it's important to note that the vents at the top of the roof gable end will remain that same color. They're not proposed to be painted. Here's the other entrance to New York City Pizza that's facing the park. This is the porch area to the left of that entrance. Again, this is the porch that's facing Shelter Cove Community Park. The planters would go between those columns. Is everybody seeing this?
We can see the brick columns with nothing between them right now.
Right, and yes, sir. And the planters would be installed between the brick piers. This is just an example of some of the screening that's going on at Shelter Cove Town Center. This is outside Talbot's, obviously. I think this is, again, behind the French Bakery. And this is the proposed railing, louvered railing between the brick piers to the right of the front entrance that's facing Shelter Cove Park. These were previously they were installed without approval. So the applicant is seeking approval of these installed louvered rails at this point. Again, that's to the right of that entrance facing Shelter Cove Community Park. It's the bar area, and these are the railings that are being proposed. Well, they're installed, and they're seeking your all's approval. That concludes staff's recommendation. Again, I would just remind you that it is staff's recommendation that this be approved with the condition that the plants and the planter are not artificial.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I am.
If you could please state your name and title if you have one, or so we have it for the record.
Webb Durden, manager, New York City Pizza.
Hey, Webb. Is just you speaking?
Yes, I have another gentleman that's listening in too, David Robertson. Yes.
All right. Would you like to add to Chris's narrative?
We have the louvers already installed. We definitely did jump the gun a little on that. We would like to paint those white, the same as the columns there. I believe the color is either Snowfall or Sprout. All of those are on the list of Shelter Cove colors. And the exterior of the building, Chris is correct on, and the planters, Chris is also correct on. We would like to install. The reason for the louvers, there is some marble in between the brick here, and it seemed to be a little dangerous. Children were going in between there, and the place was getting a little trashy also around, kind of to make a little border there. We were finding Belk shopping carts and things like that in between over by the bar. That's also part of the reason for the planters over on the patio side, is to kind of keep a border from people going in there, smoking cigarettes and throwing cigarette butts down and some trash and stuff too. And to add to a little bit of outside seating also, especially during the time that we're in right now with COVID.
Righty. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind hanging tight in case anyone has any questions for you while we go through the board member order. Mr. McAllister, and I'm sure this is already on your list and Judd's list, but if we're replacing artificial plants as a suggestion, we'll be looking to you and Judd for what they should do there. But you probably already knew that. But Mr. McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see. For the louvered rails, the little infill between the columns, I'm okay with the design. Only thing I kind of question is whether it should be the white color. It might be a lot of white. It's just kind of an accent on the columns and the fascia, I guess. But I wonder if it should be the khaki color that you're also proposing. But I'll like to hear what other board members think about that. I'm just a little concerned would be heavy on the white right there. I'm good with the planters. I'm in agreement with staff. It should be real plant material. I think myself or Judd and staff could review that. I'd be fine with that. Let's see. I don't really love the black awning, but I realize that's sort of a precedent's been set in Shelter Cove. So for that reason, I'm okay with it. Let's see. And I think That's all I have for this. Overall, I'm okay with it. I just kind of curious what the board thinks about the louvers being painted white. And I did have a question about the planters. I couldn't see in the application. Can you tell me how tall the planters are intended to be?
The size of the planters is going to be 60-inch width, 24 inches tall, and 19 inches deep.
Okay.
They will not hang out. They will not hang out into the sidewalk. And they come to, I think we're 5'6" between the columns, so they'll fit nicely in between.
Okay.
5
I was
foot.
mostly concerned about the height. Just wanted them to have, some substance to them, but I'm good with 44 inches. So that's all of my comments.
Thank you, David. Mr. Karstens.
Yeah, I'll echo David in regards to the louvers. I mean, maybe the potential, since the horizontal siding is going to be painted potentially this khaki color, maybe that could continue with the louvers and having the frame and the cap for that feature stay the white. I understand on the other side of that, there's not a picture, but there is that, like you said, that marble kind of ledge there, and so there is more substance behind that louver when it comes to the bar side. In regards to the planters, yes, I think the sizing is correct, and I would recommend, let alone annuals or perennials that you might be looking to plant, or even herbs, I would say that we'd want to have an evergreen, a dwarf evergreen, preferably shrub associated with that, just to help, give that a little more height. That would, pretty much put between your planter and your planting, right above table height, and just get you a nice coverage there. And also the evergreen would cover you year round. I don't necessarily have an issue with the khaki or the black color scheme. I was interested about those louvers that were above the roof line and above the sign on the one side, still being that green. But I think that we're going from a yellow to more of that tan color when it comes to the siding. So I think the green will still be, it'll still be a good feature. At this point, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jed. Ms. Lippert.
Yes, I had a question to Chris, and I may just be misunderstanding this, because I think you said I know you said the plants should not be artificial, but did you say something about the planter too, as far as what it should be material-wise?
I did not. I just wanted to make sure that the plants are not artificial.
Okay, yeah, no, I just didn't know if something pertained to the planter. Okay, so I'm good on that one. I have a question to the applicant. Are there any new light fixtures, any new fans, or is everything existing to remain?
No, some of the fans are damaged, so we are looking at changing out the fans. They're a year old and already really rusty. So we're looking to change out to complete outdoor fans. I mean, solid outdoor fans that hopefully will not deteriorate as much as these have.
And what color are these new proposed fans?
A chrome with wood blades.
I think we're definitely going to need, I'm sort of speculating this is going to become an approval with conditions, including staff and a board member review. We definitely need to see a cut sheet of that fan. And so none of the light fixtures are getting revised or anything getting updated or added?
No, not as of this time, no.
Okay. And let me just see here. Chris, there was on the front view, not where you were looking at it sort of orthogonally, but really more a little bit off axis, where one could see the adjacent brick facade. If you could go to that photo. The close-up of the bottom left, I think, is the one that I'm looking for. Really what I'm getting to is the trim is the body color at that location rather than the white trim color. So I would like to see that all of the trim be consistently made that white, so we don't have those inconsistencies. The louver infill panels to me seem fussy as far as the details. I think they should, I like the recommendation by Mr. McAllister that they become the universal khaki body color.
Okay.
Ms. Lippert, if I might interrupt your train of thought,
Yes.
the soffit and the fascia at the roof line are, I think they're gray. Is that what you're talking about, being all the same color, the white?
There's vertical corner trim piece that is body color, and right underneath the adjacent roof cuts into the facade, and right underneath it's white, but above it goes to body color.
Okay.
You can see it really well in the photo that has the handicap parking sign in it. Like right in the middle of the photo.
I have that photo up now. My apologies. Can you all see that?
And we're
Not
still
yet.
looking at we're still seeing where the planters go.
So while we're waiting that to come up, just to complete my thoroughness on the fixtures, I'm seeing some heaters in there. Yes, that's exactly the photo I was talking. Nope. Yes, that one. So see how that corner trim board switches to body color above the intersection of the roof of the adjacent? Oh, well, that is the patio. That to me feels like an odd transition, that when I see that corner board coming up, it switches colors just because it's above the roof.
That raw wood color?
It seems to be.
No, I see what she's talking about. She's talking
Right above
about
the low slope roof.
Yep.
Right above the low slope roof, where it transitions. You got a pointer?
I'll see.
Go to the top of the burgundy canopy. Yeah, there you go, right there. That color and the color below it are different, is what Annette's pointing out.
Yeah, and I mean, the same exists on the other side. I'm seeing it to the right of the trunk of the palm. It's also body color there. Anyway, maybe others can comment on it. It just feels like an odd termination of one color to the next. And is there any change to the heaters being proposed?
No, the heaters are staying. Just gonna try to clean them up a little bit. They're rusty too. We're gonna put some degreaser on them and clean them up really nicely.
Okay. Any other elements, whether minor in scope or not, that are upgraded?
No.
Okay. Then so I'm fine with the black canopies. I'm fine with the universal khaki body color, and I guess the new sign will get submitted as a separate application. So we'll comment on that when that comes through. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you, Annette. Mr. Molesky?
Sure, thank you. Let's see. Maybe just to start with the existing louvers that I guess you guys put in that were not approved, that we see there. I would think, just from perhaps more of to add some architectural interest, that I would have liked to see those louvers be recessed back from the brick columns, just to create a little bit of depth. They appear to be in plane with the brick columns, so I'd like to see them either centered on the columns or something like that, just to visually create some interest, is one comment. The next comment is, it appears to be, horizontal louvers that are framed, and then there appears to be, roughly a 6 or 8 inch little vertical component to it. Again, perhaps architecturally, I would like to see that little vertical component go away, so the caps on the brick caps are proud of the louvers. So again, it just creates a little more interest. I don't know what the rationale was in having the vertical louvers there, but I guess I'll say, since you took it upon yourself to do it without approval, I'll take it upon myself to say I don't really like it, and I'd like to see that go away. The next thing is because this space and your outdoor area where the proposed planters are all part of the same establishment, I wouldn't mind even seeing some consistency between the both. And I don't know if there's any consideration to have some type of planters that kind of copy the detail that you're presenting here with these louvers, for what that is worth. I know you showed some pictures of some louvers there, and the louvers, I guess, seem to be, whatever, store-bought or ordered online, and they'll nicely fit in between the existing columns. Are they to be painted the same color as these louvers, which I guess we're talking out loud about them being that khaki color? I don't know how much thought was put into that. I agree with Ms. Lippert's comments on how the trim that we were just looking at there should not be body color. That'll be a trim color, and I guess that would extend all the way to the frieze board that runs along the gable. See if there's any other notes. I guess if we're going to be putting in live plants there, just to make sure that you have a little note, if you haven't already, to make sure you accommodate some sort of drip irrigation perhaps that you would need to make it to those planters. And then I'm assuming when we saw the picture of the doors to enter the building, where the proposed black awning will be placed, and then the signage that's there, I'm assuming that's where you guys will just put your new proposed signage, and we'll address that when it comes. Assuming that'll fill up that space where the existing signage is. Is that the intention?
We were intending on putting our signage on the canopies themselves, on the louvers, the awnings themselves.
Okay, and that might be a great idea, but then again, if we could find that picture that shows the entrance there, doing what you're saying, then if we're losing the signage above the louvers right there, I don't know if that's just going to create a big void up there, and I don't know if this awning, I don't know how much of a transom exists above the doors there, if the new proposed awning would actually be raised up a little bit higher, maybe let more light into the entry, and then also kind of fill up some of that space where the existing signage is. Maybe that'll be part of it almost seems like the signage awning presentation should be one. Just to touch upon that. But that's I guess my comments that I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ms. Remke?
Thank you. I've pretty much agreed with everything that we've talked about up to this point. I think the louvers are fine where they are, and I do think that they should be painted to match the columns. I like the color that the siding is going to be painted, and I don't think I heard whether the soffit and the fascia will remain the same color that they are now, or if they will be painted to match the siding.
We were going to leave that the same.
Okay, all right. Now, you just brought up something a minute ago about the awning. You're going to put your logo on the awning. I assume that Sugar Cove has approved that, because I don't think that's happened anyplace else in that complex.
They haven't approved it yet. We were going to definitely get with them on it before we, did anything with the awnings.
Okay. Assuming that it's approved, then will you have some kind of backlighting underneath the awning so that the logo will show through, and then there'll also be good lighting for entrance into the building?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, this is Chris Darnell. Excuse me, Ms. Remke. You can't backlight a sign like that. That's not allowed in the LMO. As well as, just to clarify, if the signage is going on the awning, it will still have to get a sign permit. So depending on the size of that, you may or may not, as a board, see that. That might be something that gets approved at staff level.
Okay. That being the case, if the sign goes on the awning and that's all approved, then I would suggest that you light it someplace up near the louver so that your customers can see the signage that's on the awning. And then I would also suggest that, since right next door there is a black awning, that your awning be the same or similar material and color, because you'd be surprised how many colors of black there are. But I think it ought to be similar to the one that's existing there. Those are my comments.
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. Ms. Voss?
First of all, I really like the new colors that you're proposing. I'm totally against yellow and red together any place on Hilton Head Island, and I think it's going to look more like a steakhouse. I agree with Mr. McAllister that the white louvers colors between the brick pylons would be a little too much white. But then I'm confused, because then you want to put, as I understand, black planters on the left side of those. And I think those two elements need to match each other a little bit better in order to tie the whole restaurant in together. We always like plants, and so if you want to put planters in there, that's good, but I'd really like to see the planters match the louvers on the right side a little better. We need to see the awning details in order to, I know we're not approving the signage, but from what we can see right now, it doesn't look like the awnings will support a very readable signage. So I want to see the details for that. Definitely we need to specify the outdoor fans, or talk about how they're going to be adjusted. And there are options for the planters that we got the specs from, and I want to know what options you're going to use. There's LED lighting, there's legs, not legs, what kind of irrigation are you going to use? There's self-watering reservoirs, but I suspect you're going to need drip irrigation, and you get the option of a tapered side or a square side. We really need to see which planters you're opting for. Let's see, what else do my notes say? Okay, I think that's it.
Webb, do you know which planter is the one?
As far as we were basically just going to water them ourselves is what we were looking at doing. Coming in every day, and I mean, we're going to be there pretty much every day or have someone on staff that would water them. Put something in that would possibly be very hardy, water once a day and not have to have too much fuss with. So it would just be the composite material in black, or if we changed it to universal khaki, we could do that too.
The actual planter itself is the one that's up on screen right now.
Correct. At the same measurements that we spoke about before. Correct.
Okay, so what Miss Foss was inquiring about was the other page that shows the ones with the angled sides. So yeah.
Oh no, just the rectangular sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very classic.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Miss. Were you done, Kathy? Oh, you got your hand up. You still have the floor, Kathy.
Could you verify if you're going to do the drip pan and whether you're going to have the legs or not on there? Thank you.
No legs, and a drip pan sounds like a good idea. I'm glad you brought that up.
If we could make sure that that gets specified in the finals, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, my turn. Chris, could you go to the photo that showed the louvers on the Talbot service yard, I believe it was? You just had it. Right? Yeah. Got a mishmash of pictures here. Hold on, it's still loading. Well, I'm gonna Mr. Molesky said everything I was going to say. You see the louvers here, they're recessed from the column and they're below the cap. So the louver is most definitely a secondary element, both vertically and horizontally. And now, Chris, could you please go to the louvers installed on, there you go. Go to the previous one, please. Or was that it? Let me see. Yeah, that one. Those can't be in the same plane. It just doesn't work architecturally. So it needs to be, ideally it would be centered on the column, and that the top rail would be just below the brick ledge that you have there. So I'm along with Mr. Molesky. I'm not in favor of what's been installed, because if this had come before the board as a drawing, I'm pretty sure it would not have gotten approved. Just because the whole hierarchy is incorrect. So those need to be fixed for me to vote for this. The color of them, I like Mr. McAllister's comment that maybe they're not white because it's a base and maybe it's a little heavier. So the khaki color, I wouldn't do them black if the planters are black. I don't know if that was being insinuated in other comments, but they're different. A planter's different than that louver, so it can be different. If anything, you would paint the planters to match the louvers. But since black is not a preferred Hilton Head color, I would not paint those black. I'd be fine with khaki. All the other comments are great. I thought everybody had wonderful comments. But those have to change, unfortunately, in my mind. Anyone else feel that strongly? Other than John?
I'm going to agree with you on that.
Same here. Once I heard the comment about them needing to be recessed, and, I think it was verbalized much better by both Mr. Molesky and by you, Mr. Gentleman, that while I couldn't put my finger on it when I called them fussy, it's exactly the top needs to disappear, so it's underneath the cap of the brick and it needs to be recessed. I don't know that I need it to be centered on the columns, because I'm just going to presume that they're trying to get two-seater tables in between, but I do think they need to be recessed.
Okay. Yeah, they could be, ideally centered on the column, but not necessarily. I think it needs to be at least one brick width, which is 4 inches, a brick and a mortar joint back from the face, which would probably put it right at about the column base. Looks like it's about 4 inches back, maybe, give or take. So, and the top. So that top cap could be kept. It just needs to sit on top of that horizontal that's just above the louvers at 1x4 or whatever that top horizontal piece is. And then the verticals just don't exist. So, so move it back 4 inches and shorten it by 8 inches or whatever that dimension is. Get it under the lip of the proud brick, and then the louver itself is fine. So hopefully you can keep most of it and just cut off the top or something. So
Just as a FYI, there is that marble that is right on top of where that piece of white wood is on top of there. There's that marble that's already on top of there. So dropping that, when we do drop the louvers down and recess it back, unfortunately we couldn't recess it back. We wouldn't be able to recess it back now at all. So we would definitely have to drop it under that brick, because there's marble in between the columns and the brick that's there.
There's the marble. So I didn't understand that. Where's the marble?
There's
So
these
that's the
small
bar
numbers.
that faces the Shelter Cove Park.
Correct.
Do we have a picture of that?
We don't, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at that corner right now. Do you see the corner pier, brick pier with the column?
Not yet. It's filling in on my screen.
Okay. If you look, you're gonna the screen. It was the picture we were just looking at. If you look to the immediate left of where the wood comes down and hits the brick pier, you can see a gray, the gray marble countertop that he's talking about. Just FYI, staff went back and looked. That was not that marble countertop has been added since the construction of the building. You know, I know Webb will say that it's been there, and it's probably been there for a long time, but it was not part of the original drawing.
Oh, so there's a countertop behind it?
Yes, sir. Do you see the picture now?
Yeah, but still this solution is not good. They can present another solution, keeping the marble and putting I see it now. I had no idea that was there. What's under the marble countertop right now? What's holding that up?
The little brick ledge that's there holds it up.
That whole span?
Correct.
A long span. How thick's the marble?
It's thick. It's 1.5 inches or so.
Yeah.
And it's mortared in. We can definitely put the louvers directly under that and put it back 4 inches, like you were saying. But the top cap, we'd have to start that top cap under that brick. And then the marble ledge would be showing underneath there. Or up above it, sorry.
We don't have a picture of, well, that's a dumb question. No, we don't.
Hey, Chris, I still can't see the screen. I've been locked up for a few minutes now. I don't know if
Yeah,
anybody else
I have
can.
the benefit. I
I
have
can't
them
see
up
them.
on my iPad, so I can see it. But yeah, the image still is not up, Chris.
Okay. My apologies. I don't know.
Here it comes, or it looks like it's doing something. Looks like an old 1980s pixelated video game. Couldn't keep up.
I tell you
Okay.
what, um, Teresa, can you pull up the presentation?
Yes, Chris, I have it right here.
Okay,
You'll have
maybe
to
you.
stop. I did it.
Okay, it's up. So if you look to the left of the Copenhagen can, you can just see just beyond the white counter. Is it shown on your screen, David, now?
It is. I can see it now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I didn't see that before. Um, so
I tell you what, if it helps, I don't know if it helps, but if Teresa, if you go back to the second the second photo sheet that has multiple photos on it, in the upper right hand corner where it says right side elevation, you can see the marble.
There it is right there.
oh,
And you can see it also on that front, the photo that's titled front full elevation in the lower right hand of that same sheet.
yeah, I think you'll have to build something under that. You know, worst case, you could use that as your countertop. Uh,
May I ask how big that, and it's marble, it's not granite, somehow in the picture it looks like granite, it's the same marble as the bar behind?
No, it's different. It's a different color, and I don't know if it's granite or marble. I think it's granite.
To me, it just doesn't fit at all, because you have the marble behind, you have a granite that doesn't fit, now a louver with lots of details that tries to hide it, but doesn't respect the brick architecture. I'm struggling more and more with it rather than less and less.
yeah, I agree with Annette. Yeah, I think you got to pull that out and build what you want, but set it back. Um, but it's not going to be stand-up bar height anymore. So I see where you're trying to go with it. It just, it just to be real blunt, it doesn't look good. It looks, and it, like I said, if this had come before the board, it would not have gotten approved to be built, just because the architecture on it's all wrong. There's the hierarchy's wrong, the height of it's wrong, all the things Mr. Molesky pointed out. So you can, get with your designer and try to come up with another idea and submit it to the board. But I don't think that's approvable even with conditions.
So you think taking it off would be the best bet and then putting the louvers in?
I think so, but as Ms. Slipper's pointing out, now you can see the mismatched granite that doesn't match anything else. I'm guessing that's 40 inches off the floor, off the grade. So it makes a good stand-up bar. Somebody can stand there with a drink, set it on there. But your other option is pull that granite out and then rebuild it, and your bar, your stand-up bar is just 36 inches off the ground, or whatever the top of that brick is. I can't really get your handles on the doors are, say, 36, so the top of that, I'm guessing the top of that, or the bottom of that brick that's proud, is probably around 36 inches off grade, but I'm just guessing, which is what a typical kitchen counter is. So somebody could still stand there and put a drink on it. It's just not 40 inches, or 42, which is more of your bar height, where you have stools and things like that. So, but I think, I don't know. I don't know if I can solve all your problems while we sit here. But if the top of whatever your bar is were sitting on that proud brick like it is now, and then you had a band of wood that aligned with that brick that's sticking out, the proud brick, and that was the top of your louver, and then there were louvers below it, I could see that as being acceptable, but I need to see it. I need to have a drawing of it. But then it comes in question, is that granite, appropriate? What do you think, Ms. Lippert?
I want to give the floor to Ms. Foss for a second. She's been raising her hand.
Oh, sorry, Kathy. I've been looking at the picture. Sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
Thanks, Annette. My arm was getting tired.
Obviously, I wasn't paying attention to you.
Given that actually that bar was added afterwards, we can see that it doesn't match the existing, and I agree with the louvers because I agree with safety of children and hitting their heads, etc. And I also agree with the client's comment that given our current pandemic, we need as much outdoor seating as we can. So I think it would be better if that bar was redone and brought down to a 36-inch or so counter height, given that would allow the louvers to come up to probably the ledge on the brick columns and just kind of finish it off cleanly. I agree that we probably have to see drawings and see those colors and the materials. And I'm still all about the planters on the left-hand side matching the louver color of khaki, if that's where we go. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think since this is such a big part of it, we need to see it again. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, so my suggestion is going to be, and Chris will explain the pros and cons of this, is withdraw until you can come back with answers to all the questions that everybody had in a finished package that we can review and approve. So, Chris, would you, before we ask Webb to make a decision, could you explain the pros and cons there?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Webb, the the DRB has three options in the LMO. They can approve it as submitted, they can approve it with conditions, or they can deny it. If there are minor and only minor changes that need to be made, they can table it to the next meeting. However, that is only reserved for only a few minor changes. So what I'm hearing from the chairman is that he's saying, and I'm not hearing any disagreement from the rest of the board, that there are too many changes for them to approve it with conditions at this point, and they don't feel comfortable doing that. If you withdraw it, you preserve your right to come back to the DRB whenever you want. The LMO says that if something is denied, then you're prevented on coming back to the DRB for a full year without substantially changing the project. So it just a withdrawal, you'll lose your fee and you'll get a new number when you resubmit, but it preserves that right to come back as soon as possible.
When would be the earliest date to come back? Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. That's a good question. Today is the actual deadline for the next meeting. Hold on, let me double check that before I say that. Yes, sir. Today is the deadline for the next meeting in November, and there's only one meeting in November and one meeting in December. So having said that, staff is willing to work with you, but because we are in a virtual format, I don't have a lot of time. I have to turn it around and get the posting out on Friday. So, I mean, you know, I could give you until the first of Friday when Friday morning. But other than that, you're gonna have to make it to the December meeting, which is the second Tuesday in December. And let's see, the deadline for that is the 25th of November.
Is there any way to possibly move forward with the awnings and the exterior paint and not have any, and let me get everything else together for the bar area and the fans and the outside stuff and the louvers? Is there any way to do that? Just so if we get closer to opening, we could, you know, at least have the awning and the exterior paint done. Any way we could do that?
Chris, can you withdraw a portion of what's submitted?
Staff doesn't have a problem, Mr. Chairman, staff doesn't have a problem with you specifying as a condition those portions that you wish to approve, if that is the board's, you know, if that's what the board would like to do. Like if you want to specify that as a condition that the khaki color is approved and that the awnings are approved, then staff would not have a problem with that.
Okay. Mr. Molesky, you had your hand up.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to kind of point out that I think that the reason that we're having probably some of these concerns is because, you know, the owner client here kind of took it upon themselves to do some things, you know, on their own about doing like a partial approval, and more specifically, you know, to pick on what we're referring to as that marble or granite. And, you know, not that I'm being employed here to offer any design suggestions here, but this kind of ties into the partial approvals. Let's say hypothetically that marble or granite that's there works good, and I was going to throw out a suggestion to perhaps reconstruct the louvers So the louvers kind of fall like we were all discussing, it's recessed, and maybe leave a little 4 or 5 inch gap between the top of the louver and where that marble is. So the marble can remain, the louver goes underneath to provide all the benefits that we discussed. Now, with that being said, we were all questioning the color of that marble and granite and how well does it relate to this khaki and everything else. Perhaps the applicant takes a look at some of the colors that exist in this marble or granite, and let's just say there's some shade of gray in there. Maybe the solution is making the body color, one of the shades of gray we see in this marble or granite. So all of a sudden now that marble and granite now makes sense and relates. And therefore I'd hate to approve khaki when it ends up conflicting with the marble and granite, if I've made myself clear.
Well, the khaki, I mean, we don't want to make the tail wag the dog here, because we're talking about khaki on the body of the building. So that color, I think everybody liked it. I didn't hear anybody that did not like that khaki color, or the black awning. So I would be fine approving those two elements. In Webb, part of our job is to help you get to where you need to be. We're not here to be a roadblock, but we do have things we have to uphold. So I would be willing to allow you to withdraw the louver infill portion of your submittal, and we could vote on the rest, and then you come back with alternate ideas on the infill. But, and I know you won't do this, but what I don't want to see is they start painting those louvers and everything like that's the way it's going to be, and then we get into some kind of push and pull on, you got to take those out, I'm not going to take those out kind of thing. Ms. Foss, go ahead.
I agree. I like the khaki color and I'm okay with the black awning color, but we don't have the specs on the awning. So I wouldn't want to just say okay with a black awning until we see the specs.
Okay, good point.
The black
Especially for
awning.
signage as well.
Is the awning going to be on the same frame that's there now?
It is. It was going to be on the same frame, and yes, correct. It was going to be on the same frame, and the color was going to be black bean, which is, I think, the color that was given to me by the town. I'm not sure if that's a Shelter Cove thing or a town thing. I believe it was, but yeah, it's black bean is the color.
Does that help?
It's a shelter.
Yeah.
This is Chris. This is Chris.
Okay, Chris.
The black bean is a color that is used.
Okay. But there wouldn't be any signage, or would there?
The signage on the awning would not be approved, or it has not been approved.
Okay. I mean, Kathy, does that help that part if it's on the same frame?
That helps me understand, but I have a hard time seeing how, I don't know what the full name of the steakhouse is going to be, how that would fit on that little horizontal part of the flat end of the awning.
We actually have a design crew that we're working with that's doing signage for us, and I have that. I can submit that over to you guys, the color and everything that would go on there, and we have different colors, so you guys can definitely look at something that you think would work well on that canvas. We just wanted to possibly get to where we could get the outside painted and get the canvas ordered, and then our logo guys would do the logo on that, whatever you approved.
Chris,
Mr. Chairman, this is Chris again. I just want to clarify, like a procedural thing. I think it would be best if you list what is approved in the conditions as a condition of approval, and not having him withdraw a portion of the application. if you're concerned, you might even include in the conditions what's not approved.
Okay, that's fine. I'm open to whatever the best procedure is. All right. So in general, if I'm reading the majority correct here, the comments we had, let's say, okay,
All right,
taking,
Sandra, may I add something to the awning?
yeah, sure.
Okay, because as soon as I heard that the signage is not going above the awning, to me, the awning is too short. There's gonna be a massive area of wall with no detail, no articulation. So if the signage goes onto the awning, in my opinion, the awning needs to be taller, much more like on the Talbot facade. I realize their sign isn't on the awning, but the height of the awning is much more in line with what would then help take up that very blank facade once that sign disappears. So I cannot see the awning on the existing frame with no signage above it.
Okay, that's a great comment. Chris, can you pull up the Talbot's elevation so everybody knows the reference there? It's a much steeper awning. That's a really good point too.
Teresa,
There we go.
I'm relying on you.
Teresa's, yeah, she found it. Oh, no, there it is, right there. It's on my screen. So that's like a 12, 14 slope or even more than that. I mean, that's hard to tell from the side, but that's a steep awning that fills up some of that real estate that Annette is referring to. And I would agree with that comment. I mean, it probably needs to go up 1, 2, 3, probably 4 siding heights, whatever that is, to get it a little closer to the plate. Okay, so okay, everybody, I can only see about 4 people at a time, and I see Debbie waving. So if I don't see you waving, when there's a break in the conversation, you can say, excuse me. Debbie, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to reiterate one more time that he really needs to check with the facilities for Shelter Cove to make sure that he can put the sign on the awning before he goes about getting a bigger awning and everything. So I think that's the first step, and if they say that's okay, then we'll look at a bigger awning.
Okay, because this requires Shelter Cove approval. Chris, also?
Yes, sir, it does, and he has Shelter Cove approval for what's proposed.
Okay.
That's a good.
Not if we make it steeper and we have we have not approved the louvers. So those are 2 pretty big things.
Yes, he'll have to go back to the ARB.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what we'll do, this is still a democratic board of sorts, is I'll see if anybody wants to make a motion, unless we're withdrawing. But I think there's now too many things to make a motion. Kathy?
I agree. I totally recommend that the client withdraw.
Yeah, because now we're not talking about the awning and the body color. We're now talking about just the body color. It's about the only thing that everybody has essentially signed off on. So, does anyone disagree with Ms. Foss? Okay, I think that kind of tells us what. I got to recommend that you withdraw and come back, because I don't think we can come up with enough satisfactory conditions without actually seeing it. And again, a good point that that Ms. Remke made is that if we want a different awning, it's going to have to get approved by Shelter Cove. So I don't think we can move this forward.
Okay. Chris, is there any way I could try to get you all the information by Friday needed?
Yes, yes, sir. I'll do what I can and
Okay.
keep it open till Friday morning. I just have to turn it around because of our virtual format a lot quicker than I have to usually.
Okay.
And we'll need a drawing of the proposed railing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good luck, Webb. I really want to see this move forward, and I'm sorry that it turned out the way it did. We just don't have enough info.
No problem. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to at least try to I'd like to get with Chris and get back to you guys on at least the outside color and the awnings.
Okay, so before you
Webb,
lose us, do you have any questions for anybody, Webb? That something they said wasn't clear, or
No, not really. I think.
okay.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman and Webb. Webb, I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound, but I have to have you on record as saying that you're withdrawing.
Yes, I'm withdrawing, but that means I can come back on Friday, right? Sorry, I haven't done this before.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It does. It does.
Okay.
Okay. So
All
now if you have any final questions, go ahead, Webb. We got.
No,
Anything
I think
not clear. Okay. So it looks like you're good on the body color. No one had a problem with that. Just the awning and the fan.
the louvers.
Yeah, the louvers. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to the next item. Signage, Circle K signs, Matthews Drive, DRB 002006-2020. And for this, we get
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, let me interrupt real quickly. Teresa, am I sharing my screen or are you sharing?
I can see all the people. That's all I can see.
Currently, no one is sharing their screen. I believe Circle K is up next, and that's Shay's presentation.
Yeah.
Is Shay sharing her screen?
Not yet.
No, I was going to be sharing the screen. Can you share your screen, Teresa? It seems to be working better.
Yes, no problem. Shay, if you just want to.
Thank you, Teresa.
Sure. Shay, if you just want to let me know when to advance the slides.
Shay's still muted.
Shay, are you there?
Shay, you'll need to unmute on your end.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Teresa. I'll let you know when to advance. I'll go through staff's presentation now. This application is for the signage proposed as part of the redevelopment of the Circle K on the corner of William Hilton Parkway and Matthews Drive. 2 new freestanding signs, 1 facade sign, and pump graphics are included. The colors are consistent with 2 prior DRB approvals for Circle K. The first freestanding sign will be located on Matthews Drive. This sign will be constructed of sandblasted wood panels located on top of a brick base with a roll-lock cap to match the building and pump canopy columns. It will be 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide. The copy on the sign and each side above the base will be painted to match the building. The second larger sign is proposed for William Hilton Parkway. This sign will also have the sandblasted wood panels located on top of a brick base with a roll-lock cap to match the building and pump canopy columns. It will be 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide. The copy on the sign and each side above the base will be painted to match the building. One facade sign will be located above the main entrance that will be sandblasted as well. The proposed pump graphics match the previous approvals. Landscaping was approved by the DRB with the approval of the building and the site improvements. Staff is recommending approval of the application with the condition that the landscaping for the sign be upsized. So as you can see here, I think we're zoomed in to this location map, Teresa. Do you see that? Okay. So, I'm sorry, I was zoomed in on mine. The location here is at the corner of Matthews and William Hilton Parkway, and you can advance to the next slide. Here you'll see in location A1, the freestanding sign located on Matthews Drive. In location A2 will be the sign located on William Hilton Parkway. Location B is the facade sign and the pump graphics in the area of C. And you can advance again. This sign is the smaller of the two, located on Matthews Drive. They've incorporated a base to reflect the architecture using the same materials from the building, and the color of the sides of the sign and the graphic or the copy matches the building color. You can advance now. This is the larger sign located on William Hilton Parkway. Again, with the same base proposed, same cap as the building, and colors that match the previous approval and the building color. And you can advance. This would be the facade sign. Advance. And continue through that. Continue. 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 And these are the pump graphics here that were previously approved for the other Circle K locations. And then advance now. This is the landscape plan that was approved by the DRB. The signs are located as was reflected on that original site plan. Around the signs, they proposed lantana, and we would recommend that that be upsized. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Shay. One question consistent through all these. You mentioned that the colors match. Does that include on the sign that the colors that are behind the words diesel and unleaded?
I'm sorry, Teresa, can you go to one of the sign pages?
Right there, that's a good one. So the green and the blue, those have been approved before?
Actually, I believe those were removed from one of the previous approvals. I apologize. I did not catch that, but the red and the orange, those were previously approved.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because it just hit me like there were a lot of colors on that sign. So I just wanted to, is there a way to verify that the back, on the previous sign we approved, what was the background for unleaded and diesel? Is there any, you don't have a handy dandy file right next to you, do you? But,
No, not available to
okay,
me now.
okay,
But the applicant may be able to answer that question. They were the same
okay.
applicant.
Oh, okay.
Were.
Well, well,
But I do believe that in those cases, the I believe those signs were being modified. They weren't new. So there were other existing colors in play.
okay. All right. We'll quiz the applicant. So, is the applicant present, and could you please identify yourself?
Yes, sir. Bobby Stevens, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. I'm Bobby Stevens with AAA Sign Company. I think this is the only colors that we proposed. I was looking through my loose leaf book, and I don't see any. I do see that the ones on Lagoon were a brown, but they were existing, as Jay said. So they refaced some of the signs at Lagoon, but they didn't do a total refurb. So these are brand new signs. Color change, we surely can. Also on the call is Crystal Price with Sign Resource that builds the signs, and Dennis Boydston with Circle K. So if you have questions, we have plenty of people who can answer and make decisions. Mr. Chairman, I think you're muted.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just sitting there talking to my dogs. Thank you. Boy, now I don't remember. I've been talking for a while. Thank you, Bobby. Would you like to add anything else to Shay's narrative? And thank you for the answer, by the way.
No, I'd rather hear your comments and let Dennis with Circle K do the decision making.
Okay. All right. So we'll if y'all hang tight, we'll go through the list here. Mr. McAllister.
All right. So I do recall the Glidden Red Earth and the Yam being previously approved, so I'm good with that. I do agree. I didn't really pick up on that when I was reviewing it over the weekend, but I do agree. I think the red and yellow and green and blue is a little busy, so I'd kind of like to see an alternative color in lieu of the blue and green. That's kind of my take. And on this sign, there's something about it that feels a little out of proportion. And in my mind, I kind of feel like the brick base should be dropped down like 6 inches. It just feels slightly out of proportion or something with the sign panel. And on staff's comment with upsizing the plant material, I think that's good. I would add to that, I think it would be better to do like an evergreen ground cover in lieu of the lantana, since it's going to die, and be dead a few months out of the year. So I think an evergreen ground cover would be my preference. And yeah, so I'd like to hear from other board members as far as how they feel about the proportion of the main sign. But I'm good with everything else that's proposed.
David, regarding plant material around the brick base, how high would the plant material get so that how much brick would you actually see?
Well, the lantana is, I think, let me see what species they spec. Some of it can get a little bigger than others. Let's see. Yeah, so the Chapel Hill, I mean, it's probably not going to get more than 18 inches, if I had to guess. And then it's going to be dead in, January, February, and March. So I think it'd be better just to do some evergreen ground cover, whether it's liriope or something similar, just to get that year-round impact.
And will that get taller? I'm just trying to compare, they got a 30-inch base, and if the plantings are 20 inches tall, 24 inches, then that leaves only about 6 inches of brick sticking up.
Yeah,
Some of that's going to get covered, right? So
yeah,
you're,
yeah. Some of the brick would get covered. I don't know. When I look at the sign by itself, that's the proportion comment to me. I mean, maybe I'm by myself. You guys may not feel that way. It just something feels a little out of proportion with the base to the sign panel. But regardless, I think it should be an evergreen, a low evergreen plant. It doesn't have to be Liriope, but if it was, that's only going to get 18 to 24 inches height.
all right. Thank you, sir. Thanks, David. Mr. Karstens?
All right, I'm going to piggyback on Mr. McAllister. Yes, as far as an evergreen, I see that dwarf yaupon is being used in the buffer. Maybe a differentiation from that would be helpful around the signs. So I saw at the Mid-Island location there was jasmine. You could certainly go with that, or if you wanted to go with more of a shrub, that was something different. There's dwarf loropetalum. There's some options if you wanted to have something that kind of popped around your signs. Also, I'm guessing that this is going to be uplit, so we want to be cognizant of that when it comes to plantings and keeping free and clear of those uplights. And then I did while we were talking about this in these different colors, I did a quick look around at the other Circle Ks on the island, and the predominant background is that lighter background outside of the logo. So instead of having the blue and green, it would probably have that gray field with dark text and dark numbers. I'm very quickly, especially looking at the one Mid-Island. It's the shell logo is with the Circle K logo on that one, but it is a overall lighter sign with dark text. So, but like Mr. McAllister, let's go with a lower evergreen. Ground cover is perfectly fine. Either jasmine or Liriope is great. And let's just be cognizant of the uplights. And of course, I'm in favor of a lighter background when it comes to the fuel indicators panels.
All right. Thanks, Judd. Very good. Ms. Lippert?
I agree with all the comments that have been made. I had a similar reaction about proportions and color. Also thinking about the shopping center sort of diagonally across from there. I'm not talking about the sea turtle, but the other one that we've seen a couple of times where we did a approval of 3 of the sort of primary colors as a maximum. So keeping that sort of in mind, but also the previous Circle K that had come before, I think it also needs to be that amazing gray as the background for the unleaded and diesel. And I have a question for Shay because I probably misread the LMO, but it seems like a lot of signage and a lot of square footage. On my first read, I thought nothing could be over 40 square feet, and the totality seems like a lot, but Shay, could you speak to that?
Sure. The maximum height and width are defined by the LMO. The 40 square feet is limited to the face size. So you can go up to 40 square feet for the face size, but the width and height are constrained based on the size of the sign that's permitted for the square footage or the number of units. So in this case, it's 8 feet and 15 feet. 8 feet tall and 15 feet wide would be the maximum size.
But the proposed is 44 square feet, and I thought it's allowed only a max of 40.
The sign face itself should be limited to 40 square feet.
So it says on there 96 inches times 5'9". That is 46 square feet.
That's 59 inches, y'all.
Oh, that's 59 inches. Sorry. 59 inches times 96
Well, no, but
inches.
it's 59 plus 7. It's 66
Yep.
inches times 96. Because I did the math this afternoon, and I agree with the 44 that's noted on the application, which seems to be 4 feet over.
Yes, you're correct.
And I think that will also help the proportions, because by having a 50-50 split of the Circle K and then the fuel, if the fuel portion of it gets shrunk, it will read proportionally much better. So if that gets shrunk, ideally by a foot, but at least 9 inches or whatever is required to get us at minimum to the 40, I think the proportions will already start to be better.
Yes, and we definitely through the sign permit, I would have reviewed that. I think we went back and forth on various modifications, so I did miss the 44 on the larger sign.
And we added that address at the top, which probably threw everybody designing off.
So I think
we can lower
comment, and I would have to scroll through the various. I'm obviously looking at the biggest one in most clarity is the blue and the green to go to amazing gray, and the 8x8 going down to getting shrunk from the side. And on the A1, I think the Matthews Drive address is too big in proportion. Could I just ask you to scroll through? We have how many signs?
2 freestanding and 1 facade.
And then the ones on the, yep, so those are the comments. I just have the comments on A1 with the address being too big, and then all the other comments I made on A2 with both A1 and A2. My recommendation is to go to the amazing gray instead of green and blue. Thank you.
And Annette, for you, click off. I'm trying to take some notes. On the big sign, where was the foot, or where was the reduction in the height or the width?
The width. I think the 4-foot width that is the unleaded and diesel, that needs to come down. That'll help the proportions up.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Annette. And Mr. Molesky.
Yes, I don't really have anything new to add. I agree with a lot of Ms. Lippert's comments and others as well. I think two colors is sufficient, and also a good point with the other signage with the address seeming to be a little too dominant. But thank you.
Thank you, John. Ms. Remke?
I think we pretty well covered everything. Good save on the square footage, thank you. And I like the gray on the unleaded and the diesel portion of the sign. Is that a mechanically number? Is that a mechanical number change on there? It's not
Manual.
backlit anyway. Manual. Okay, and then it's not on the particular drawing we have in front of us, but I think illumination is external on the ground. Is that correct? There's lighting on the ground to light it at night.
Dennis?
I was just confirming the
Correct.
lighting.
It is not.
It'll be
external.
Yes, this is
Yes.
Dennis with Circle K. The sign is not backlit in any way.
No, I know that. I was asking what kind of lighting, which might be on the site plan, but I can't see the site plan at the moment. But there is some type of lighting on the ground to uplight the sign.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Ms. Foss.
I really like all the comments that have been made before. We did agree when we talked about the Port Royal Plaza colors that we were only going to do 2 colors max. So taking that blue and green away and adding the amazing gray behind the fuel dollars makes a lot of sense. A2, oh, question for the client. How high is the brick on the bottom of the actual building? You're matching
I
it?
have
Go ahead.
I have to defer to Shay and Dennis.
I don't have that information available. I believe it was close to what would be like a flood wall area. But I can try to pull that up.
And based on the height of the doors and everything on the graphics, if it's even close
Oh
to
wait, yeah,
accurate,
that
I'd say it's 48 inches probably.
I'm sorry, that does include the an elevation of the building in the package. Teresa, if you'll scroll down.
Yeah, I'd guess it's 48
Yeah, I'm sorry.
inches.
Yeah, I apologize. No, go back up.
Back up.
Yeah, just stop there.
Okay. Then in perspective, when you're seeing the sign and the buildings behind there, I'm okay with that brick height, but I agree that the proportions are out and A2 needs to become more narrow, and that'll help with your square footage issue. Let's see.
Kathy, were you good with the net suggestion that it shrinks about a foot?
In width, yes.
Yeah, in width, yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Yeah, everybody's said everything. So, yeah, the blue and the green need to go and become the amazing gray with dark letters. I think Annette's suggestions on bringing that extra 4 feet you need to get out of it, 4 square feet, not 4 feet, by shrinking it 8 foot is a very good comment. You see, you got some comments from our landscape architects on what to put around the planting, and I didn't see a submittal on a light fixture. Is there one in there anywhere? What actual fixture is being used?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I was not aware that lighting was proposed for the sign, but that is something that I can review as part of the sign permit, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll just want to make sure that in an amendment, a motion, it would include that. So basically, we got the color, the lighting, landscaping, and the size. Are there any others? Anybody else want to add a second round?
Could I just get clarification? So everybody's kind of thrown out the amazing gray as the background, but obviously the copy letters are also proposed as amazing gray.
Those would go dark. With the letters would have to be darker.
Okay.
And I would be comfortable with Shay reviewing that.
Okay.
This is Crystal with the Sign Resource. We'll be making these signs. Do you have a color suggestion for the darker fonts and copy that we're calling out, just so I can go ahead and have it down?
Shay, is there something we can take off the previous approval for that? Because the other ones were the gray, right, with darker letters.
I would think that maybe looking at the elevations that were approved for the building in more detail to see if there are any trim elements, the window casings that we could pull either a bronze or a color like iron ore, something that's a common neutral dark color that we approve, would be a good way to go.
Okay.
But I don't have a suggestion for what that color would be without reviewing what was approved for the building in more detail.
Okay. Are you comfortable working with the applicant on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Yes. I keep looking at, now that we have the blue and green going to the amazing gray, are we going to feel that the red from the address is going to feel lopsided? Does that need to also go to the gray with the dark copy? Particularly on A2. I mean, obviously, I think we want to do the same thing on A1 and A2, but it's particularly on A2. I hear the
I'm in
rest of the
agreement
board.
with that.
I'm okay with the red going all the way across. That and the identity of the storefront or the gas station needs to stand out more than the cost of the fuel.
Mr. Chairman, we can't hear you.
Oh boy, I'm forgetful today. I'm fine either way with the length of the address color. If the group feels strongly one way or the other. There was a mention that the address type was proportionally too large on the A1. That's the only thing I was just going to remind everybody of. But either way, I mean the brick base goes the full length. So on the let me get my numbers right. My A2, the brick base also goes that full width. So if that red band at the top goes the full width, I'm okay with it. But I think it kind of defines the entirety of the sign.
I think that's a good point you make.
Okay. All right. Any last additions, subtractions? I see a hand, Ms. Remke.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chris.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. Shay, the letter font is for the address is 4 inches, correct? Height.
Teresa, could you on the smaller sign?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't all of the addresses have to be 4 inches to meet height, to meet
They are.
fire and rescue requirements?
Yeah, 4 inches in height is the minimum.
Okay, so I guess on the A1, we just need to, we wouldn't obviously make you go less than minimum, but if right now they're 4.5, could they be 4? But I don't know what they are. If that sign
Right now
is, sorry, go ahead.
Right now they're 3.5. We'd
Yeah.
have to boost them up.
They're going the wrong direction. On the A2, are those 4 inches?
Yes.
Can you abbreviate the drive on the A1 and make it fit at 4 inches?
Oh, how would that work?
May I ask, does A1 need the address, or does it suffice if A2 has the address?
Fire and rescue typically prefers that on corner locations that we have it identified on both signs. But that is
So
something that I can check with her on, with the fire marshal, if there is the desire to make that modification.
well, I think it would be the preference not to make it larger than it already is. It's, but what would happen if that has to be 4 on that A1 sign? I don't think it would fit lengthwise, would it? Um, Bobby, could you answer that? I mean, a 4-inch type wouldn't fit lengthwise, would it?
It probably would. You could condense it just slightly, and a half inch ain't gonna make that a whole lot of difference.
Okay.
We could keep it the same width, and it wouldn't make any difference. Or we could abbreviate, but I hate abbreviations, and Jay and I talked about it before, that it needed to be the full address.
Could you modify the font type possibly?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
We can modify it slightly, and it wouldn't show a difference between the unleaded and diesel.
I'm gonna have to come in and say that even if you deal with the kerning and change the font, but if you raise the height, you're gonna be right at the top and the bottom of that, I'm gonna call it an insert, and it's not gonna be legible.
No, they'd have to raise, we don't have a square foot issue on this, so they'd have to raise the whole panel slightly to accommodate the extra half inch. So it'd have to be an extra half inch to give you a border top and bottom. But it's not going to affect the square footage that's prohibited. You see what I'm saying? But you had already had a problem with the size of it, and then when I looked at it, it was only 3.5 to start with. So I would think if it was on there.
Yeah, the A2 sign is 4-inch letters and it's a 7-inch face size. So you'd have to increase the A1 sign by an inch, basically, to make it fit the other one. I don't think that's as long as you're within the square footage, I don't think that's a problem. Because then you have a 73-inch high sign instead of 72, and I don't think anybody will know the difference. So, but if it has to be 4, it has to be 4. That's not, I don't think that's anything. But if it can be 3.5, it looks better, I would guess. Proportionally, yeah. All right, so are we in the right zone here? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll take a crack at it.
All right, Mr. McAllister?
I'll make a motion to approve Triple K signs at Matthews Drive, DRB 002006-2020 with the following conditions. That the sign on Matthews Drive shall have 4-inch letters for the addressing, and the sign height will increase 1 inch to accommodate this. The colors on signs on the 278 and Matthews Drive sign, SW 9178 in the navy and SW 0041 Dard Hunter Green shall be replaced with SW 7044 Amazing Gray, and the copy color should be changed to a darker color that could be reviewed and approved by staff. On the 278 sign, it should be shrunk in width 1 foot to be in compliance with the town square footage requirements. Replace the lantanas with an evergreen ground cover plant material that could also be reviewed and approved by staff. Submit a spec for the uplight that should also be reviewed and approved by staff. And I think that's all I've got.
I think that sounded, thank you, David. That sounded pretty good. Does anyone have any discussion on the motion? All right. Would anyone like to make a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lippert. I believe that was you. And excuse me, I'm sorry. We have a motion with conditions from Mr. McAllister. I've been on this call too long. And a second from Ms. Lippert. Teresa, would you please do roll?
Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Ms. Foss,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Ms. Remke,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Gentleman.
Yes, passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks. All right.
Thank
So
you
we
guys
will
for
move.
your time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. We will move on to board business. Discussion of height limits and setback standards. Chris, are you still out there?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is back on the agenda at your all's request from the last meeting. There was some discussion about what to do, and I think it was left that the board was going to consider their options and then return back at this meeting and give staff some direction. One of the things on the table, one of the suggestions on the table was to write a letter to the Planning Commission and or Town Council to have them address changes in the LMO that would that the board would feel more comfortable with or thinks would better address their concerns.
Right. All right. So let's open it up for discussion. Is anyone staying awake at night thinking about this and they got something they need to get off their chest? You got any ideas? Let's just open it up. Annette, you had your hand up first.
Yes, I have been thinking about this, and I thought about this all the way back to when town council interviewed me. And they asked me what I thought was the inherent town of Hilton Head character of and what made it unique. And to the best of my recollection, what I said was what I find unique about Hilton Head as a vacation destination from just about any other beach destination location that I have been to is that on the beach, that a couple of things. The respect of nature and nature being integrated as strongly. And secondly, that it is not that the entire beachfront has one massively tall building next to the other to just maximize how many visitors can, sort of get located right against the beach. And that is where, while I fully understand now, my comments were not within line of the allowed building envelope, why I had such struggle with the Mitchellville lot. And to me, the best solution as far as what one might propose to the Planning Commission is an additional angle setback off of the beachfront side, but maybe it's phrased in the way of not just being off of the setback, but wherever the building starts, or 10 feet out from where the building starts, in order to create a lesser volume, or by forcing a little bit more of a step volume towards the beachfront. So that's kind of where my thoughts went with all of this. Now we'll see how everybody else is feeling about it.
Do you have any thoughts on how to quantify that? I mean, the thing that would be the most challenging is, I think, is there a sweet spot? Is there a number? I mean, the angle setback definitely works to an extent, but is there a better angle, or is there a better number? I just don't know what it is. It's kind of one of those, I know it when I see it kind of things, and until you realize that there could be one 5-story building less than 40 feet away from another 5-story building, and then another 5-story building, and another one, you don't really feel the impact of it until it shows up in front of us. Where we looked at today, the railing at Shelter Cove Harbor, when you walk along those buildings are all tall and they're all pretty close to each other, but you don't get the same feeling of, that big giant wall, because there's a lot of space around it. And that's my biggest problem, is that a building can be that close to a property line and be that tall. Now, if you go down to Coligny, the Holiday Inn, there's a lot of space on either side of the Holiday Inn before you get to the next really big building. So it's more open, it's more area. I just don't know how you make that fit on a lot like the one we saw in Mitchell. It's difficult. But anyone else? I'll quit talking. Go ahead, Kathy.
I think Gardner, the apartments on Gardner, is also a good thing, and I totally get not having a wall on the beach, but within Hilton Head proper, I'd rather see us step back with the setbacks so that we don't see walls of anything. I liked Annette's discussion about having that angle setback. I also feel like there's probably the ability just to say 20 feet from the first floor to the second floor to the third floor, and that the LMO, or the allowance for square footage on a building, be restricted more so by those setback angles than the square footage. So if you want to have, I don't know, however much square footage you want in an apartment building or a condo building, it still has to meet those setback angles, because that's always come up to us in that they were allowed so much square footage, and in order to get that, they had to have that flat wall in front of us. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. What about our urban planners?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add some food for thought. You're more than welcome to suggest whatever in the letter. But I would suggest that you don't have to be specific. You can leave that to a study of what if we can adequately describe what you're trying to achieve, we can leave that to a study that staff can do. And Mr. Chairman, you yourself said it, that you don't know what it is, but you'll know it when you see it. Then they can come back, whoever does the study can come back with the suggestions and the specifics, to get to your goal.
Okay. Yeah. Because like I said, it's easy for me to sit here and comment and be critical, but then somebody can always turn around and say, okay, well, what's the solution, smart guy? And I don't know if it's the angle starts 20 feet above the ground or 15 or 30. I liked Annette's suggestion that there might be a secondary setback that relates to the building as you go up, so things just don't get, sheer and vertical. Or, a requirement that the building steps back, might be enough. But yes, I think we could craft something general, if nothing else, to get the, solution going. And again, I'll go back to the other thing I think needs to be included in the letter is creating a secondary buffer between hardscape and the vertical plane on a building, which would be a minimum 5-foot planter strip, except where there is required egress or access. So I would definitely include that as part of it, as long with any setback things. So. David?
I'm in agreement with everything that's been said with Annette and Ms. Foss and what you just reiterated on. I don't know what the sweet spot is for angles. I just can't really speak to that intelligently. My take was that I don't know that a 20-foot setback is appropriate for a 75-foot building anywhere on the island. That was my takeaway. That you could have two 75-foot buildings with just 40 feet away from them, and that's legal. That's not island character to me. So I think my take is maybe we look at zoning like waterfront mixed use, where you've got a 75-foot building height, and try to identify areas where you've got a 75-foot max building height and just a 20-foot setback, and maybe it should be like 30 feet, at least 25 feet. That's kind of my take. I'm just not well versed enough in angles of setback. Like, I understand them, but I don't know what it means or what it looks like.
Yep. I agree. And the building that we referred to, the Mitchellville building, is one of the reasons it was so broad was because of the U shape of the layout, which made a lot of sense. But if those two wings were pushed together like a typical double loaded corridor you would find on a hotel, a 5-story hotel, that building would have been much more concentrated towards the middle, and then there'd been a little bit more daylight to the left and the right. But that wasn't the case here because partially the way they laid it out, which I thought was a really good layout, it was really, really close to the edges. So I don't, like I said, I don't know. It would have been great if that had gone in 30 feet, or the site was 20 feet wider on both the left and the right. I think it would have made a world of difference. If you could fit a golden section between two buildings, that tends to be the kind of the acceptable cure-all for proportion, maybe, but that wouldn't work there. It's too vertical. So.
I think about building edges and edges of property, and the fact is that working within the corridors, we're subject to these edges, and oftentimes, especially when it comes to those waterfronts, there's such a stark contrast between planes that this idea of stepping and trying to relieve some of that is really important. Obviously, the talk has been about between buildings, but another trick is the setback angle doesn't start until you're above 20 feet above base flood. So with that Mitchellville site, we had additional height on the base of that building before you started that, and then even the overall height. So I don't know if some of that's going to change in the spring with the new with the new flood elevations, and then being involved with that storage building that wanted to go in on 278. That too was another one of those instances where it was a particular use that needed mass. And I think some of these uses that we're seeking It's how can we appropriately use that mass of the building that people are gunning for, and maybe it's a vertical relief and a relief within the building, like you mentioned, Michael. As far as Shelter Cove, it's a large building, large series of buildings, but the way that they step forward and backwards, along with kind of the floors, how they work, it kind of gives a texture to it that like we said, eliminates the huge flames. So.
John.
Yes. What are the arguments from the developers or those that represent the developers that as we increase the setbacks, which, by the way, I'm in favor of doing, but how that diminishes the potential densities that they're able to achieve and how that affects the ultimate value of the land and the viability of their projects? I mean, it's a balancing act between, our job, obviously protecting the beauty of the island, but at the same time, we don't want to discourage development to the point where it's just not financially feasible for anyone to move forward. I mean, what is the other side of the coin from the developer?
Yeah, I mean, that's that's part of the sweet spot. It's you don't want to make any parcel unusable, but I think we have to limit what our suggestions are and be bounded by the term island character. And then because we could never take all the accumulation of different lots here on Hilton Head and be specific on each one to make it work. It would be impossible. That's why the LMO is somewhat general, because you can't, the lots all come in different shapes and sizes. So we don't want to make it unusable, but we need to look at it more from a what feels right kind of perspective on our end. And then because I don't want to get into anybody's pro forma or, I got to build this many square feet to make this work. That's what they need to figure out once that's what they need to figure out per whatever the guidelines are. So I don't know that I can adequately factor that in heavily. But from aesthetic standpoint, I think we could certainly make comments.
Has there been many requests for variances in your experience from folks looking to do these projects? Or we found that the variances typically are not granted and therefore they need to abide by our setbacks?
I mean, in my time here, we've done very few variances. I wouldn't be able to give you an example. A variance is usually due to hardship and not because we want to or because I want to make more money. That's, I don't think that's a hardship. But, Chris, do you think of where any variances were done? I think we had one. We had a stair on the smokehouse that required a small variance. That was a functional thing. That's about the only one I can come up with.
So what I was getting at is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
Right.
Chris, do you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Nicole Dixon, just so that y'all know. So the variances go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and there's 4 criteria that's required for a variance. Like Mr. Chairman mentioned, it's pretty much based on hardship. So if there's unusual or extraordinary conditions that pertain to a lot, whether the lot is bisected by a wetland or has a specimen tree in the middle of it or something like that, that really restricts the buildable area of the lot, that's typically when a variance is sought and approved. We don't really see many variances for new construction, typically. It's more of, there's a single family home and they want to build a pool, but they don't have any room in the rear of the yard, so they apply for a variance. And a lot of times in that type of situation, they're not granted. But we don't really see them in this case where, they're looking for a higher, height limit or setback.
So I guess thank you. So at the end of the day, what everyone agrees on is there needs to be some kind of relationship with the higher the building goes vertically, the greater the setback needs to be. But exactly what that relationship is, whether it's 50% of the height or whatever, that's what we're tasked to identify.
Well, I mean, Chris
No,
had said that we can be more general than that. So, and then you appoint a commission or a study group to look at it, see if they can come up with anything. Like I said, I don't think we need to solve all the mathematical problems here. It's just we need to, if there's a concern, which we've raised on several occasions, the boathouse building that's going to be right up on the street. I remember that one. There was a lot of discussion on how tall it was, and how broad the elevation was. There's Mitchellville, there was Hilton Head Beach and Tennis, and so on down the line. It's just when the buildings get big and massive, we can suggest that they break it down, but in the end, we're kind of powerless if they're within the LMO. So, but I think we just need to be general in our comment and see if it goes anywhere. Chris, right?
yes, I agree. I mean, I think it could be as general as in the letter saying that, the DRB has serious concerns about the current building height and setbacks, and give some examples and of the concerns. I think it could be as general as that. We don't have to say it has to be a 40-foot angle on the setback. We don't need any numbers, just something general if that's how you all want to approach it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I mean, we can. When is there any kind of upcoming review, LMO review or anything? Do they do it yearly, every other year, when they think they need to? What's kind of the schedule?
We typically
There you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say we typically take like a general set of amendments forward, typically twice a year. Now this year has been a little bit different because of COVID, so we haven't even taken forward our general 2020 set yet. We do have a list going, and so when we're ready to take that forward, we will. I'm not sure that that any of this will be on there or not. What we're looking for is for you to voice your concerns, send it to town council, and then council will direct staff to work on amendments that could address this.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to work on a letter and then at the next meeting, maybe have a draft that everybody can look at. Our next meeting we only have one in November, correct? So
that's correct.
We have a rough draft of something and we talk about it in November, maybe we can, issue it after that, or we send it to everybody. Is this something we can do? If there's a draft, is this something we can do outside of this meeting, or does it have to be reviewed in this meeting, meaning public?
It needs to be reviewed in your meeting, and you all need to say that you're sending this forward as the DRB. So it needs to be a public. Now, let me just add about the schedule. I know that you all are anxious about this, but I would remind you that actually the deadline for the November meeting, which is the 1st of November, is today. And it needs to be, the letter, I think, your draft needs to be in the packet when it goes out. So, right. I mean, I'm happy to include it on Friday, but you might consider a longer range and maybe have the draft for the December meeting.
Yes to that. Yeah. I don't think I would get you a draft by even Friday. Would be pushing. I got my light on my phone is rapid blinking right now. I know I got at least 30 messages I have to return. So, yeah, this does not need to be pushed to the front burner, but it's something we should work on and don't let it just evaporate. So, we'll talk about it in December then. I'll
Okay.
get something in. I'll get something in as a draft for everybody to look at in the December meeting.
Great.
All right. Did we, any other, anything else on that subject? All right. Then we shall move on. Staff report, Chris?
Mr. Chairman, there were no minor corridor approvals since your last meeting.
All right. So I think if we have no other board business or staff business, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bye.
Thank you all.